Very good morning. Namaste to everyone. It's an honor and a pleasure to be in this great lecture hall in IIT Indore. And also, I was not meant to be a panelist till I think 5 days ago. So I think one of the things about Indian knowledge systems that we must understand is that serendipity and deep desire to do something have a lot to contribute in our lives. Though we are talking about metallurgical engineering and material science, there is a deep spirituality involved in everything that Vinodji and Ishwarji and Gopi and the gang here do. So I was coming to Indore as part of the Kalari team, the martial arts team, who performed here yesterday, and we have a stall outside with the weapons are displayed. So I was wondering, there is nothing for me to do, and I was going to be just the presenter of Kalari. And then last week, 5 days ago, this edition of the weekly comes out. This is a Malayalam weekly, a very famous weekly called Madhubhumi, which has been around for 100 years now. And they incidentally had an article on the ancient furnace technologies and forges technologies of Kerala. So I was extremely glad to put together a presentation thanks to the IKS Center for Kalari and Siddhar Tradition at Trinity College, where I am the principal. And thanks to Sujitra Madhusudan and the team at IKS who put together a beautiful presentation very quickly from the notes that I gave them based on the article. And look at where the serendipity takes you. I was here this very morning, having breakfast, and I run into Balal sir and Venkatramanji. And he was somebody who was instrumental in this research that I am presenting. So there is a lot that can happen if you have a very deep desire. At every time I stand on a stage facing the young Indians, I feel like Jambavan in Ramayana trying to tell Hanuman, you have forgotten what you are capable of doing, and it's my humble duty, not that I look like Jambavan, but if that helps. Because part of how we remember our history is because we used beautiful metaphors. There is always this confusion about our history is not written like history, it is written like a mythology, like stories. But would we have any history left if our history was written like the history textbooks of today? Would anybody preserve a history textbook? It's because of the stories and the metaphors. And our metaphors are full of metallic origins. We forge, we recast, and I think it's time for Vinodji and Ishwarji to think of recasting the way panel discussions are done. Because we are, infinitely we are obliged to the informal sabhas that happen around such meetings where knowledge transfer happens. So without further delay, and hopefully this behaves better with me than with you, Utala Taras. So Ut in Malayalam literally means blowing. So Ut and Ala is the place where the smiths work, blacksmiths, goldsmiths. So Utala Tara is literally where the blowing of the furnace used to happen. And that's one of the ruins. The work I am presenting is entirely done by a society, and this is taken from an article written by V.S. Gerard. So I'll credit them first. So this came in this weekly. I have only knowledge of this, and after this, a lot of Googling, and maybe ChatGPT can help recently when we go into research further. The author of the article is V.H. Gerard, and it's about the work done by PPST, the Patriotic and People-Oriented Science and Technology Society and Foundation, in which our dear Balal sir was part of. And the study commenced in 1989, and it was led by Mr. Aravind Dakshin, who is a Gandhian and a writer. So, what is Utala? These are the traditional smithy and forges, and there is this place in Malappuram district in Kerala where massive remnants of such forges have been found. They are not big structures, but we always had a decentralized, distributed industry. We were not about assembly lines and massive organizations of companies and businesses and so on. So it's a place called Arakku. So Arak, the word is a corruption of Uruk. Uruk or Uku is the name for Woods steel, which later on now the world knows as Damascus steel. So it used to be original Indian Uruk steel. So Urukparambu, from where it comes, and they found 3 remnants. 2 of them got destroyed because Kerala always keeps shifting to the next available cash crop. So we were building rubber estates there, and 2 of them destroyed. But luckily people didn't destroy the 3rd one because they believed that one of the local deities, Tikuti Chatan, will curse them if they destroy it. So lucky for us, for the PPST society, one of them remained preserved. Now, they are structurally different from what was described by Francis Buchanan in 1810. So, this means either they are much older than the time when he found forges, and most of the time people never get to things. The sweeping statements that we hear in history are so misleading. When you say the British were here, the Portuguese were there, French were here, to our tiny minds and imaginations, we imagine a map of India in which British and Portuguese and French and everybody keeps walking over, or the Mughals. So the problem with that is India is so vast, huge and diverse that things never happen in the same way, in the same place throughout. So some technologies remain preserved and they exist till today. So he had seen this in Valancheri and Angadipuram, marketplaces there, but these were not what he described. So we can imagine that these were much older. They were prepared from specialized mud, and then the temperature is this unimaginable 1540 degrees Celsius that they maintained inside it. So when the work was happening, we still had craftsmen who knew this. So Talacheriyan and Konyayappan were the sons and sons-in-law. The last master craftsman accepted as Raman, and that is one of the photographs. So what the British did was they built a modern furnace, a company called Porto Novo, to create steel, and that, as they have done to different Indian industries, that destroyed the steel industry. But come World War II, they were in need of steel, so they had to come back and ask for any remaining craftsmen. And they found Mr. Raman, and they tried to recreate the forges. And there was this, he was also in charge of forges in several different sectors. So you can imagine, like the vice chancellors and the people who head research labs, there will be one master craftsman who will oversee the grander technology that happens in different parts. So as per, these are mind-boggling numbers, 300 tons of steel getting created and exported every year to Kochi. So, and they were definitely, if it comes to Kochi, they will be meant for exporting and so on. So these are the 1854 records. And the team there did a fantastic job. They met with these craftsmen. The names are there. Cheriparambil, Moideen Gutti, Karipala Muhammad, Nerivil, Alavi Haji, Kaluvetti Muhammad. So these show that the industry cut across religious lines. And because this was a particular caste of people who were blacksmiths and goldsmiths and so on, so the religion didn't really matter. So there was an attempt to recreate, and Balal sir was telling us that there was another attempt in IIT Bombay to do the same. And they succeeded in their third attempt, which again is going back to our traditional aspect of you'll succeed the third time if the first two attempts fail. And they catalogued around 50 centers, tremendous amount of centers in Palakkad, Kozhikode and Malappuram district. So much is written about Kerala's spice trade and the ancient agricultural products of Kerala. But nobody thinks about the implements that would have been required to create such kind of an agricultural tradition for tilling, sowing, harvesting, everything, preserving. You will need metals, right? So who are the people who are making it? It's not like we imported like today. It was not like the electronics comes from Korea or something. We were building these tools and we have lost that knowledge. So look at the amount of crops that a small state like Kerala, and this is particularly one part of Kerala called Malabar, 490,279 acres of paddy and 38,000 acres of coffee and pepper, 10,000 acres of other crops. So all of this needed implements in metals. They needed to be forged and crafted. And then there were the other professions, carpenters, blacksmiths, goldsmiths, barbers, potters. Everybody needed implements, tiny, tiny sizes to really large-scale implements. So they also had to be crafted by the metallurgical traditions. And most importantly, the warriors. The people of the Kalari at that time, Punniyam, Valluvanadu, Kadathanadu, and even the southern traditional Kalaris from which we have come, we needed the weapons. So once you go outside, you will see how these things are made today. But they have been there for centuries and centuries. And weapon making was something that was part of a brilliant culture that existed. Again, more and more numbers here. The 1857, after the first war of independence, the British did some raiding and they were collecting the weapons that were kept at homes at that time and in the traditional chieftain fiefdoms. So some reports were made, and look at those numbers, 17,295, just from a small region, that much amount of weapons, and in that 7,503 guns. This is coming in 19th century, the amount of guns. So When we talk about a single war of independence, it was never a single war, and we have historical records from Kerala about 1721, the Attingal Revolt, 1741, when Travancore Kingdom became the first Asian power to defeat a European power in sea and land. It defeated the Dutch in the Battle of Kolachil, and then went on to show how magnanimity, experience, and wisdom in victory is, because the captured general Delanoy was made the main trainer for the Travancore army. So we got the expertise without killing him, made him the trainer. He survived for decades after that, and he was a great trainer, and then he died in Trivandrum, and he happens to be related to Roosevelt, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So there is a tradition that goes all the way from Travancore to the US presidency, if you will. So we were always at war. Nobody wanted to be messed with the freedoms and the traditional values of a society. These are some of the praises that are said about the Indian iron and steel work. Michael Faraday, whom everybody knows now, despite not knowing many of the scientists of India, his co-worker had noted, this was in the, again, 19th century. And then Captain Campbell says, the worst steel from India, the cheapest steel from India is still better than the best steel he can find in the UK. So all of us need to come together and think about why we have lost track of such tremendous technology. And IKS division is doing a superb job of trying to promote research. I know what happens in IIT Indore. We are also trying to do something similar by connecting with Siddhar tradition. Dr. S. Mahesh, the co-PI of IKS Center at our Kalari's Gurukul, will be in the panel this afternoon to talk about metals in Siddhar medicine. So it's a combination of the colonial mindset surviving and the rigid divisions which prevented us from documentation. A book I'm reading right now, it had this amazing sentence about Indians not being very keen on documenting. We have such diverse, wonderfully enriched lives, but then we probably sing a song about it for 5 minutes and leave it at that. So if we can document more, I see these great, great gentlemen sitting in front of me, Mohanji sir. Your lives are the great inspiration that can come to the youngsters sitting here. I hope all of you find time to write an autobiography and then leave it for the generations to come. Thank you very much, sir.